This podcast is proudly brought to you in part by our wizards on Patreon. If you would like to support positive content, hop on over to patreon.com/MissMaryLou. That's patreon.com/MissMaryLou. The man who has done his level best and who is conscious that he has done his best is a success, even though the world may write him down a failure. B.C. Forbes. Wow, I connected with this quote so much. I think a big struggle for me in general is recognizing my own successes, even if from whomever's outside perspective may perceive them otherwise. Just marking something as a success or a failure based on what you know and your personal best. Like, if I do my best, even if it fails, it's still a success. I just think that's so powerful. And we can get really caught up in the opinions and labels of others because of course we do. We're literally not just societally ingrained, but back in the day when we were all living in tribes hunting for food and everything before any sort of industrialization, etc., we had to be accepted by the group so that we wouldn't just be left out in the wilderness to die. And it's a very real thing to want to be accepted and marked as successful by others, etc. But it is really important, I think, to recognize our own successes. You can only do the best you can do. And your best is not somebody else's best. I think that's really great to keep in mind and something to strive for. So, nothing like getting a little deep at the top of the podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of PositiviTea. This is the podcast where I bring you good vibes by the spoonful. I am your host, Miss Mary Lou Ryan, and it is fantastic to be back in your ears this week. Oh, wow. I love this podcast so much. My heart has been yearning for it. Thank you for being patient while I have been figuring some stuff out. I'll get more into that when we get into our self-care experiment. But yeah, it's really freaking wonderful just to have an excuse to sit here with my microphone and talk about positive things with all of y'all. And it makes me so happy. I haven't actually had any tea yet today, which brings me to the tea I'm drinking today. So for a tea today, I just wanted something really just comforting, familiar, and something with caffeine. So I just brewed a really basic cup of Twinings English breakfast. I just love this stuff. I've been drinking this for so long now, and it's so cozy, and it's just a straightforward black tea. Got that caffeine in there. It's so accessible. It's a paper tea bag. It's affordable. Honestly, most of the time, I will come back to things like this just because they make me feel happy and warm and cozy and all of those wonderful feelings. Just comfort. It's just a cup of comfort. Cozy comfort. And I need that in my life. Especially I know I brew a lot of really gorgeous loose leaf teas, but sometimes, I just want to use the tea bag, and that's totally okay. Everything has a time and a place for sure. Also, yeah, this is my actual first cup of the day. I'm recording this in the early afternoon. I usually film it towards the end of the afternoon. So I've usually had a little bit of tea by then, but no, today, my friends. We are caffeining up as we podcast. Ah, so homey, so cozy. Don't be afraid to return back to basics. If you have that nostalgia tea or a tea that you've discovered that is just easy and cozy and delightful, go for it. It doesn't always have to be like top shelf whatever sort of tea. Like sometimes comfort just wins. Comfort wins, and there's value in that. So yeah, I really like the tea I'm drinking today. It's just so nice. So, last week for our self care experiment, I talked about how I was paying attention to the language that I used to describe myself, just taking note, noticing, and then after a while, making an effort to change. And this, I'm not going to lie, this took a bit of conscious effort and but wow, did it lead to some realizations? Because as we talked about last time, I was calling myself things like crazy and the worst, etc. I've definitely gone through a lot of like self deprecation phases in my life. It was a way that I was able to cope with certain abuses and traumas in my life, etc., etc. And I've really been trying to dial that back. And I'm a lot happier for it because a lot of crazy stuff happens in this world. A lot of really terrible things, quite honestly. And I don't need myself putting myself down all the time. Absolutely not. And I found that since I've continued to do this, I feel lighter. I feel overall lighter. I don't have this extra sort of pressure, weight just in me all the time. I know that's a bit abstract sounding because it is. It is absolutely abstract. But yeah, my brain feels clearer. I'm not even so this is the thing too. It's not just what I've been saying out loud that I've been working on, but as I've been continuing to work on this, it's also the negative thoughts that I put myself down with. I don't necessarily have to say it out loud. And this has been a whole other level of just awareness because, like, my brain can churn out all sorts of really terrible things about myself without even saying them out loud. And just working on recognizing when that's happening and to just say like, oh, that's not your fault. Oh, you have no control over this. You did your best, even if that person says that you're a failure, etc., etc. So working, I guess this was an outward in sort of approach to me, which I did not expect this self-care experiment to go in this direction at all. I've had a little more time to sit with this one and it's been really valuable, I think. My intention going into this was to not like change the way that my inner thoughts are working about myself, but here we are. So just beginning by noticing what words and phrases I use to describe myself out loud and change that into something else, something that has a more positive spin on it, to now being at the point where I am conscious of the thoughts, my inner dialogue to myself about myself, and being conscious of it and making an effort to change it. I can't tell you how freaking huge this is. I am so mean to myself. I'm so mean to myself. It's, it's like really gross. I'm really mean to myself, and again, it's not my fault, right? Because if you're mean to yourself, it's not your fault, whether you're saying it out loud or thinking it in your head. Putting extra blame on ourselves is just, it's too much. It's way, way, way too much. And I've been doing a lot of research and stuff about a lot of abuse that I've had in my past, which has also been helping a lot, especially with the whole it's not your fault train. And I had a situation where for therapy, I had gotten into the wrong kind of talk therapy. So I haven't been going since like June because they couldn't keep seeing me, and I've been struggling to try to find a new place to go, and it's been a whole adventure. I finally found another therapist that I'm not going to be going to for another like 2 weeks, I think, from now. But I found one. But in the meantime, just like having the self awareness to take a look at the kinds of thoughts I'm thinking and being like, but why though? Why do I think that way? Why do I say these terrible things about myself? And doing like, some really long, hard looks. And I was like, oh, wow. I have a lot of abuse in my past, don't I? Let's do research on it. That's the way my brain works anyway. I get a lot out of research understanding the science behind the why. It makes things a lot easier for my brain to process. And most importantly for me, it eases a lot of the blame because that was a big theme in my, and it still is. It's not like all of this bad thought stuff just like went away overnight. Absolutely not. But just being like, oh, wow, it's not my fault. It's not my fault I think about myself this way, and I can make an effort to change it, and it's okay. It's okay. And then reading about different treatment options, whether it's like therapy or otherwise, of how to help cope, help heal, just be like, oh, it's not my fault. And I can turn this around for myself. There are possibilities, there are avenues that I can go down to make life less difficult. And all of these revelations are just huge and things I never anticipated coming out of the self-care experiment. It's definitely something I'm going to continue to work on because just the constant buzz in my brain of negativity, having that at least eased up a little bit, it makes a freaking enormous difference. I'm really curious if any of you listening have tried the self-care experiment since I talked about it last podcast. The whole like noticing the language you use to describe yourself. How has that been going for you? Is there anything that you've noticed? Have you been down an unexpected pathway of like, oh my gosh, my life is explained and all of this stuff? Or are you just, able to notice when you're being mean to yourself? I'm really curious to know because this has been really a wonderful experiment for me. And I feel like I'm gonna keep coming back to this one, even as like my current this week self-care experiment kind of a deal, because it's really important and it's not super easy, but it's been really beneficial for me, of course. So for this week's self-care experiment, I have been, I'm real busy. Like I have a lot going on, and a lot of it I do alone by myself as far as my online content endeavors kind of a thinger, right? Not only have I been publishing regular content to YouTube, but now I'm streaming on Twitch 4 to 5 nights a week, which, and, still pursuing my voice acting career and all of this other life stuff that's happening right now. And it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm so lucky. My sister-in-law slash editor wizard, Liz, is helping me out with editing my Tuesday videos. But even with that, I realized I thought that I could find a balance, and I didn't. So this week for my self-care experiment, I've been taking the time to reevaluate and attempt to balance. And that can be kind of hard because I feel like I just did this. Well, because I did. I just did this. I was like, oh, let me try to do this and see if it'll help, blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. Before I was Twitch streaming, I had the balance pretty well. And even a few weeks ago, I tried to rebalance so I could still stream and still edit 2 videos a week while still filming 3 and all of that stuff. And you know what? It wasn't working. It wasn't working. And when I get overwhelmed and everything, I don't, it's really hard for me to produce anything at all. So I, and just recognizing that, just be like, you know what? I don't have to try to kill myself to get all of this work done, which is crazy. And I love both platforms. I love all the platforms because this podcast is a whole other like crazy, wonderful, wacky thing. And that I had really, really been missing. And I know I mentioned this in the last podcast as well. And I thought that I had found a balance, friends. But tried to live that out and I was wrong. And it's okay to admit that I was wrong. I mean, yes, it's just the truth. It's just honest. So we reevaluated again. And I think just knowing, especially this time, that it's like, you know what? This also might not be the answer, and I'm probably going to have to figure it out because it's nice to be like, oh, I figured this out and then now I'm done and it's just going to be great. That's not necessarily the way things work, actually, most of the time. And I'm okay with that. I'm not blaming myself. I'm not like angry or putting myself down about all of this, that my last balancing act attempt did not work. I tried my hardest, which makes it a success, but as far as making me not lose my dang mind, that has not worked very well. So really like taking the time to do that, talking with people that are knowledgeable, that can empathize with my situation. Like shout out to my friend Kristen, who's another YouTuber, Strolling Through Life. She does beautiful eco-conscious content. I adore Kristen. And I was talking to her, and Kristen is just such a good friend in that way, and one of my best friends in the YouTube space. And it's just so nice to have someone that gets it, And I was talking with her about like what I was trying to do and how I felt overwhelmed and everything. And she's like, well, what do you like doing most? Like, what do you want to be doing? Don't worry about trying to cross-platform this or whatever that between Twitch and YouTube. And I was like, I really love my Tuesday tea parties and I really love my podcast. And she's like, do that. Do that. If that's what makes you happy, and that's like people like to see that because you love to do it so much. And I'm like, oh yeah. Because sometimes you just need another person to help you look at your life from a more objective, observant, outside perspective on things. And then I literally gave myself my own answer. Like, what do you love producing the most for the channel? It's like, well, my tea parties and the podcast. Well, there you go. So for now, I guess this is also sort of an announcement. I'm going to be foregoing Sunday videos for the meantime on my YouTube channel and just posting my Tuesday tea time and my Thursday podcast because I was so stressed about trying to get a piece of content out on Sunday and then cranking through to Tuesday. I was just burnt out by the time I got to Thursday for the podcast. And I start streaming starting on Tuesday. I do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And by the time we hit Tuesday and I started streaming, it was too much. It was too much. And so I'm going to try this, friends. I'm going to try it. It's going to be great. And I'm glad that I was able to admit that this wasn't working, what I was doing, to reevaluate and come back And that's okay. If something in your life sort of feels like it's off or you're really stressed and you thought you figured it out, it's okay to reevaluate and to try again. Because, like, you want to live not as a ball of stress, right? I mean, maybe just speaking for me, but like, anxiety, oh, totally overrated. I don't need that all the time, every time. And I love you guys. You're great. All right, next segment. Community news. Welcome to the next segment of our podcast, Community News, where I take good news from you, my lovely listeners, and give you a little shout out and celebrate your general awesomeness. For this podcast, I did a shout out on Twitter to see what your good news was. And, I'm really excited. I was doing it in Discord for a while, so I'm just kind of experimenting. So keep an eye out for socials in the coming weeks about where I mayhaps will post the good news gathering things. And of course, you're welcome to send me anything good that's happening in your life, even if you just got out of bed today. And please just send it to me. It's just wonderful. We love the big and small. Okay, so this first one is from Twitter from Craig. And Craig says, my daughter turned 13 today. Now I have 2 teenagers. That could be seen as good, but it could also be seen as bad. Craig, well, happy birthday to your daughter. Wow, 13. 13 is such a monumental age, especially, remembering when you were 13 growing up. You have 2 teenagers. The whole, I find it, this is maybe seems a little random. I remember learning about different stages of brain development through to adulthood when your brain finally reaches maturity in your early 20s. And it's a fascinating look into the minds of how young people's like brains function, and it's just freaking brilliant. And you have two teenagers. Congrats on being a dad. First of all, you're awesome. We need wonderful dads in this world, and it just makes me so happy to hear it. You're raising a wonderful young woman, and like, she's doing the thing. She's 13. Heck yeah. I just like, how wonderful is that? So you and your 2 teenagers, I hope that you are having a wonderful time. I know mayhaps teenagers can be challenging, because I know I certainly was. But I'm really glad that fatherhood is a thing that you're excited about. That means the world. So you're a fatherhood wizard. Yeah, I'm so just like seeing this and having someone being excited that, their daughter got a year older. Like, huzzah to you for being excited about fatherhood. I just like, what a wonderful, wonderful thing. And next, this is from Azaris, and they say, recently, my autistic son has been able to make his requests known and has shown some levels of care and concern whenever he notices anyone feeling unhappy. And with my years working with people with autism, I am very thankful for this victory, regardless how small it may seem. Talking about like another like parenting going for it wizard situation. Azaris, I'm so happy for you and for your son. The fact that like obviously you have dedicated a lot of your life to working with other autistic children and people in the spectrum, just first of all, that shows how much you care and how much you want the information to help your family and help your loved ones as much as you possibly can. And it might seem like a small victory, but being able to like communicate and to show sort of like compassion towards others. Now, obviously, I don't know your son's case. I don't know exactly like the details or the quote unquote severity or whatever, but like how huge is that? What I can't even imagine how exciting it must seem for everybody, for not just your son, but also for you and your other loved ones in your life. Just how, this makes me so happy. This makes me so happy. And, like I said, like it might seem like a small thing, but it's a really, really big thing. That is a life skill that is gonna come in handy. That's like two things, right? So making his requests known, so being able to communicate their son's needs and everything with the world to get it done, like that's so useful. And then also showing concern, compassion for others when they perceive them as being like upset, unhappy, etc. Those are such valuable, important things that are going to make all the difference, are going to make all the difference. I'm so thrilled for you. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. This was kind of like the parents being awesome, good community news section of the podcast. And it's just like wonderful. You are a caring parental wizard and you're killing it. I'm so happy for you. And lastly, I am going to hijack the last good news. I have a bit of an announcement. I think this is the first time I'm going to be saying this on anything that's going to be on YouTube. Oh gosh. So, my fiance and I are going tiny. We are going to be renovating a shuttle bus where we think we found the one. We just have to do paperwork and all that stuff. But renovating a shuttle bus into a tiny house on wheels. So exciting. So stressful. Honestly, right? Meow. It's been a real up and down journey thus far, and we haven't even started working on it yet. But this has been something that he and I have been thinking about for a couple of years now. And within the last several months or so, really putting stuff into motion to make it happen. So originally, we thought we were going to be renovating an old trailer. But it turns out we decided the best thing for us, since we're going to be committing to this lifestyle, was to actually get a vehicle that is the tiny house itself. So we don't have a separate tow vehicle and such. So it's it's a very big project and we are very excited about it. We are going to be building it with a community of tiny house enthusiasts here in Los Angeles. I'll have more info about that at a later date. So we're not going to be doing it alone. And we're going to be living in a renovated shuttle bus, which is very exciting. We decided to go shuttle bus sort of route because the ceilings are really tall. Most school buses, their ceilings aren't higher than like 5'9". Maybe you can find some that are 6 foot, but I'm 5'9". My fiance is almost 6'2". So height was a big thing for us. And I will be posting regular updates, mostly on my Patreon page, actually. So for those of you wonderful wizards who are a part of our Patreon fam, I'm going to be posting most of the pictures and everything over there. I'm going to have a video come out on YouTube like much later, like probably not until we're done. as like an overall sort of thing, but we are recording the whole process and everything. I will be posting like daily sort of this is what I worked on today updates in my Discord, but if you want pictures and stuff mostly to follow along, that's going to be on the Patreon page, and I can't wait to show you my little cottage on wheels when it's done. So yeah, that's a pretty big life change. That's stressful and exciting, and it's yes. It's yes. Good news, everyone! I have good news. Welcome to the final segment of our podcast, Good News. This is the part of the podcast where I dive into the depths of the interwebs to find a good news article for you. Again, it's important to be aware of the happenings in the world, but it's not good to become a non-functioning human because of the overwhelming tragedies in the universe. But moving on from that, I like to give you little nuggets of sunshine every week that will hopefully brighten your day. And oh my goodness, this week is no exception. I have the loveliest little article for you. So it's titled, In Deltona, Pride Elementary Students Spread Kindness to the World by Cassidy Alexander. Okay. So essentially, 24th graders have decided to form something called the Kindness Squad, where every Friday they stand on the curb as students arrive wearing t-shirts and shaking pom-poms and playing music and simply welcoming students to the school, reminding them to have a good Friday, high fives. Every time a car or a bus honks, they cheer and rah rah. One of our wonderful 9-year-olds has said, it's easy to be kind. Just a small thing that's kind could spread all around the world. This group of positivity enthusiasts were even featured on the cover of the Time magazine for kids, and it touches different aspects of their day. Their teacher really makes a wonderful effort. They practice during class having civil conversation. They practice random acts of kindness. Now, these are things that, when I say practice, like they are things that are practice in class, like kind of snuck into the curriculum. And they also pull positivity pranks on each other, which is randomly complimenting someone or randomly giving someone a piece of candy, which I love the idea of that. And later in the school year, they're going to be taking their kindness to a nursing home nearby. And another wonderful quote from our 4th graders: without the world being kind, we would just be mean people. Uh, I love stories about this. I love when I hear that adults that have influence over young minds, like teachers, are really making an effort, a real effort to build foundations that will be so rewarding for these people in the long run. They might be in 4th grade now, but the lessons that they're learning and just the practice, which I think is really important, the fact that these are different things that they're enforcing regularly to make a kindness squad with pom-poms, the practicing random acts of kindness, the positivity pranks, which I think is genius because when I was 8 years old, I loved the idea of pulling a prank on somebody. Now, granted, I never did anything mean or anything. I remember once for April Fool's Day, my siblings and I brewed my parents a pot of coffee, which we never did any other day of the year. But the prank was we brewed them coffee, but we loaded it up with a bunch of salt. Which is kind of awful now that I say it out loud. And they would pretend to drink it and make faces to humor us. But yeah, Ugh. It fits so well. This is so smart and so lovely. And they're making a difference. They're getting noticed. And hopefully, Time for Kids, other people can take inspiration and do things like this. This reminds me a little bit of a story I did a while back of my alma mater school district, of the elementary students painting different rocks with different positivity messages like, you matter, you got this, you can do it, you're loved, things like that on rocks, and then scattering the rocks into the universe. Um, it's just, it might seem like something small, but it's huge. It's really, really huge. The kinds of things that this can do for people, and not even for the kids themselves that are in this class, like the 20 of them that are doing this, but think of the impact they're having on the other students around them. They could just be passing someone in the halls, pull a positivity prank, tell them, how smart they are and how appreciated they are, and present them with a piece of bubble gum. Like, why I want this to be a thing in everyday life. For humans, that's great. That's wonderful. Like, these ideas could change the freaking world, and that just like warms my heart and makes me so fuzzy. And you gotta love the astuteness of like a 9-year-old. Without the world being kind, we would just be mean people. Yeah, we would. Absolutely. Like, being kind is so important. This reminds me, I don't know if any of you saw the new live action Cinderella movie that came out a few years ago, which I actually really, really liked. It's probably my favorite live action Disney movie that's come out, but the whole like motto and everything that Cinderella lives with and lives by is have courage and be kind. And like, there's so much power in that. Have courage and be kind. Be the kindness squad, pull different positivity pranks, spread it with the world, get out your pom poms, literally or figuratively, and just like remind people that they're loved and to have a wonderful day. So, to the Deltona, Florida Pride Elementary students that are doing this, my teacup goes to you, my dears. I'm really excited, and I'm curious to see if there's going to be any more sort of update articles on this, because I really enjoy it. I hope that this article brightened your day, brought a smile to your face. Think about pulling a positivity prank. I'm definitely going to, although I do like to practice complimenting other people, especially like telling them how much they mean to me on a regular basis and how grateful I am for them. I think it's a good thing to integrate into your life and to spread to other people. I love doing this for my friends, and it makes them smile and happy, which makes me smile and be happy. And yeah, pulling those positivity pranks in real life, I'm a little short on candy, but I do give people tea, so there's that. All right, my tea time fam, my wizards, my wonderful, wonderful listeners. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. I hope that you got something out of it, whether from a self-care experiment or even if it's just reminding you it's nice to have a comforting cuppa every now and then. I love this podcast so much, and I'm so happy to be here. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of your day. What a wonderful, wonderful thing. Of course, you can reach out to me on social media. If you hear of a good news article or you had something wonderful happen to you, please, please send it my way. It makes my day. I love hearing things from you. All right. And the last thing and most important of all, I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I'll see you next tea party. This podcast is lovingly produced, directed, written, and created by yours truly, Miss Mary Lou Ryan. Our music was composed and performed by Jacob Kahn. Our logo designed by Hilda Meyer-Post. And if you'd like to spread a little positivity into the universe, I would love wherever you are tea partying with us to spread the words with those who could use a little cheer in their cuppa. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.